I am very happy to share that two of our very beautiful subscribers have given me the privilege to share their real creepy experiences to our Horror Vault family. From now on I am thinking of doing such subscriber videos. If you all want to share your creepy experiences, then send to the email mentioned in the description below. In the year 2005, when I was just a naive 5-year-old, life seemed simple and innocent. Our suburban home, nestled in a quiet neighborhood, was the epitome of tranquility. Little did I know that the shadows lurking outside my window would shatter that illusion, plunging me into a nightmare that still echoes in my mind. It began subtly, like a whisper in the wind. Every night, a faint knocking echoed against my windowpane. At first, I dismissed it as a trick of my imagination, a product of the overactive mind of a child. But soon, that knocking became more pronounced, its rhythm like a haunting melody that refused to fade. And then there was the voice, a chilling, otherworldly presence that would call out my name in the dead of night. Come with me, it would taunt, a phantom beckoning me to abandon my safe haven. My heart would race, and I would pull the covers over my head, hoping to shield myself from the terror that had invaded my world. Nights turned into weeks, and the invisible grip of fear tightened around me. I could feel its cold fingers trailing along my skin, seeping into my very bones. Sleep became a distant memory as I lay awake, my eyes fixated on the window, dreading the moment when that haunting knocking would start again. Then came the day that forever changed my life. It started like any other, with the pale morning light filtering through the curtains. But as the day progressed, a darkness descended upon me, suffocating and malevolent. It was as if an unseen force had taken control of my very being. I was no longer in control of my own body. My limbs moved of their own accord, unnatural and mechanical. I could feel the presence of another entity, a sinister consciousness that had invaded my soul. Panic surged through me as I realized that I was no longer alone within myself. The possession was a horrifying ordeal, a battle between my own will and the malevolent force that sought to claim me. It was a struggle for dominance, a relentless onslaught of terror and despair. I screamed, but the sound that emerged was not my own. It was a guttural, otherworldly cry that chilled me to the core. My parents, sensing the darkness that had taken hold of their child, turned to the only hope they had left, a local priest skilled in the ancient art of exorcism. The battle that ensued was a harrowing one, a clash of spiritual forces that transcended the realm of human understanding. The room seemed to tremble, the air thick with a palpable tension as the priest's chants echoed through the walls. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The darkness that had held me captive was banished, the malevolent presence forced to relinquish its hold. I was left exhausted and broken, but the nightmare was finally behind me. As I delve deeper into the recesses of my memory, I am compelled to recount the events that followed the exorcism, a series of inexplicable occurrences that serve as a chilling reminder of the malevolent force that once held me captive. In the days that followed my deliverance, a sense of unease settled over our once tranquil home. Shadows seemed to linger a little longer, and the air carried an unspoken tension that left us all on edge. My parents, though relieved that the possession had been purged, could not shake the feeling that something lingered, watching, waiting. It began with subtle disturbances, objects shifting on their own, faint whispers echoing through empty rooms. At first, we dismissed them as mere tricks of the mind, residual echoes of the trauma we had endured. But as the incidents grew in frequency and intensity, we could no longer deny the presence that had taken residence within our walls. Footsteps echoed through the hallways at night, though no one was there to make them. Doors creaked open of their own accord, revealing rooms shrouded in darkness. And then there were the voices, hushed conversations that we could not decipher, as if a spectral gathering was taking place just beyond our perception. One evening, as I lay in bed trying to shake off the residual fear that had become my constant companion, I heard it again, the voice that had haunted my dreams and possessed my very soul. But this time, it was different. It was not a taunt or a call to action. It was a plea, a desperate cry for help that sent shivers down my spine. I followed the sound, my heart pounding in my chest, until I reached the attic, a space that had always been a place of mystery and intrigue. As I pushed open the creaking door, a gust of icy wind greeted me, carrying with it a sense of foreboding. The room was dark, illuminated only by the faint glow of the moon filtering through the window. And there, in the center of the room, stood a figure, a shadowy silhouette that seemed to flicker and waver. It was my friend, the one who had been taken by the pond all those years ago. His eyes, once filled with life, were now empty voids, and his voice carried a haunting sorrow that pierced through my very soul. He spoke of a liminal existence, trapped between the realms of the living and the dead. He recounted the moments leading to his demise, the fear and desperation that had consumed him as he struggled to breathe beneath the water's surface. He spoke of the pain of being forgotten, of fading into obscurity as his friends carried on with their lives, haunted by the secret they had buried. Tears welled up in my eyes as I listened, overwhelmed by a mixture of empathy and guilt. He had been calling out to me, hoping that I could bridge the gap between the two worlds and offer him some semblance of peace. And in that moment, I made a promise, a vow to help him find the closure he so desperately sought. Days turned into weeks as I delved into the unknown, seeking answers to the questions that had haunted us all. With the help of mediums and spiritual guides, I uncovered rituals and incantations that held the promise of releasing trapped souls from their purgatorial torment. Each step was fraught with danger, each ritual a gamble with forces beyond our understanding. And yet, the sense of urgency drove me forward. The bond between me and my friend grew stronger, our fates intertwined in a web of destiny that demanded resolution. As I performed the final ritual, an otherworldly light enveloped us, and I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. When it was over, I was left breathless and disoriented, unsure of what had transpired. The attic was empty, the shadows dissipating into the ether. And though I could no longer see or hear my friend, I knew that his presence had finally found peace. Now, years later, the events of that time have faded into memory. Our home is once again a sanctuary of serenity, the lingering echoes of the past but a whisper in the wind. But even now, as everything is more or less normal, I can still hear that same voice calling out my name in the middle of nowhere sometimes, a reminder of the bond that transcends the boundaries of life and death, and the profound impact that a single, fateful choice can have on our lives. It was an experience that defied explanation, a journey into the realms of the supernatural that forever changed my perception of reality. And as I share this story with you, I do so not to invoke fear, but to remind you that there are forces beyond our comprehension, mysteries that elude even the most rational minds.
That was all from our subscriber Mrs. Emily. Now moving on to the next incident shared by one of our subscribers. He wants to keep his identity hidden as he does not want any attention causing him any further problems. So starting with the incident, narrating it as it was written.
I remember that day as if it happened just yesterday. We were just a bunch of middle school kids, living our lives in a quaint countryside town. Our school was a small building surrounded by fields and trees, and we were the closest of friends. It was a typical afternoon when everything changed, when the world around us seemed to shift into something unexplainably eerie. We had this game we loved to play called Statue. It was like freeze tag, but with a twist. When someone yelled statue, you had to freeze in place, no matter what you were doing. The last one to freeze was it. It was all fun and games until that fateful day. It was our usual routine after school, me, Alex, Sarah, Chris, and Mark. We decided to play statue near the pond on our way back home. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the water. The air was cool and crisp, and we could hear the distant chirping of birds. As the game started, we all froze in our goofy poses. I was mid-laugh, Sarah was attempting a cartwheel, Chris was caught mid-dab, and Mark was trying to balance on one leg. But Alex moved. He shifted his foot just a bit, and in that split second, everything changed. A forceful gust of wind seemed to sweep through the area, and Alex stumbled forward, his balance lost. He let out a startled yelp, and before any of us could react, he fell into the pond. Panic surged through us as we watched him disappear beneath the water's surface. None of us knew how to swim, and the cold truth sank in like a heavy stone: Alex was in trouble. Frantic, we ran to the edge of the pond, screaming his name. But there was no sign of him. The water's surface remained eerily calm, as if it had swallowed him whole. In our hearts, we knew we had to get help. But fear and guilt held us back. We made a decision, one that would haunt us for the rest of our lives. We agreed to keep what happened a secret. We told no one about that dreadful day by the pond. We pretended that Alex had simply vanished, that we knew nothing. Weeks turned into months, and the weight of our secret pressed down on us. The guilt gnawed at us, a constant reminder of our betrayal. And then, things started to change. Strange occurrences began to plague our lives: flickering lights, unexplained shadows, and whispers that seemed to echo in empty rooms. But the worst part was the feeling of being watched, especially in my own house. Late at night, I'd hear footsteps, soft laughter, and even glimpses of a figure out of the corner of my eye. It was Alex, or at least, his presence, lingering in the shadows, a constant reminder of what we had done. This is getting wild. Reliving those memories, even through words, sends shivers down my spine. I can't shake off the feeling that I'm being watched, even as I continue to tell this story. After that fateful day at the pond, things took a turn for the worse. Our secret weighed heavily on our minds, and the guilt gnawed at us like a relentless predator. We tried to go about our lives as if nothing had happened, but the eerie incidents grew more frequent, and the sense of dread intensified. One night, as I lay in bed, I heard a faint whisper. My heart raced, and I strained my ears to catch the words. "Why did you let me drown?" the voice seemed to murmur, sending chills down my spine. I froze, unable to move or respond. It was Alex's voice, I was certain of it. But how could that be? I dared not share my experience with the others. I feared they would think I had lost my mind. Yet, it was clear that we were all grappling with our own encounters with the supernatural. We became like strangers, each trapped in our own nightmare, unable to escape the haunting presence that seemed to envelop us. One day, as I was walking near the pond, the very place where it all began, I felt a cold breeze, even though it was a warm summer day. The air grew thick with an otherworldly energy, and I saw a fleeting glimpse of a figure by the water's edge. It was Alex, standing there with a sorrowful expression on his face. My heart raced, and I stumbled back in shock. "Alex?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. He didn't reply, but his eyes bore into mine with a haunting intensity. Then, as quickly as he had appeared, he vanished into thin air, leaving me alone with my racing thoughts. From that moment on, I knew we could never escape what we had done. Alex's spirit was trapped between our world and the next, forever bound to the place of his tragic end. His presence grew stronger, his whispers more distinct, and his sorrow more palpable. The bond between us friends was irreparably shattered. We had started as a close-knit group, but our shared secret had torn us apart. We were haunted by our actions, tormented by the choices we had made on that fateful day. As the years passed, the once bright memories of our childhood faded into the background, replaced by the chilling specter of Alex's ghost. We had thought we could bury the truth, but it had risen from the depths to haunt us, a constant reminder that some secrets are too dark to remain hidden. And so, here I am, recounting this tale in the hope that sharing our story will finally free us from the clutches of the past. But as I finish writing these words, I can't help but feel that Alex's presence lingers, his voice echoing in the recesses of my mind, a chilling reminder of the sleepover horror at my friend's house that forever changed our lives.